we're still in the deployment category and kind of
Yeah.
like the challenges inherent there. Is that the main motivation for creating Zeus? Is it about the deployment?
So, like the deployment is like one aspect of it. The whole like concept of like what Zeus is able to do and why it like exists is that like the whole process of building infrastructure on the cloud makes no sense to me. And by like for looking at like the way that like GitOps like really breaks at scale, looking at like Terraform. Are you familiar with Terraform? I can explain
Yeah. I'm
that bit
familiar
as
with
well.
Terraform, although I've mostly used Pulumi. But for folks who don't know much about infrastructure as code, can you maybe
Yeah.
walk us through it?
Let me try to find a good repo that shows exactly how bad Terraform can get.
And people might also be familiar with like CloudFormation, right? They come from AWS.
Yeah. So like Terraform is not a real like coding language. It's kind of like a pseudo language, which is already bad enough. Um, and the way that it works is it's not really like they say infrastructure is code, but it's not really code.
Hmm.
Um, and when you define something like this, like module, Windows Server, whatever, you now have to like first of all figure out how to get this from like Terraform and then configure it into this, and then when you like go to apply it, um, then it like frequently and almost always like runs into issues that are just like, okay, this version isn't supported anymore, like this or whatever. And for most like companies, especially larger companies, they have like hundreds, if not like thousand or thousands of like pages that look like this that are just not like readable. They're not like type safe, and they can't do like things that are dynamic at all. And they have all kinds of weird like version things, and it breaks like a lot, especially with like trying to apply like GitOps to like this, as some people have tried to do. It frequently you'll have lots of engineers like that need to change like infrastructure, and it like frequently always like breaks or it's caught in some kind of locking loop or whatever, or somebody is trying to apply something else, somebody else is trying to apply something, and it gets stuck in this loop. And I can't even tell you how much time like Terraform like wastes. It is just like a nightmare, and I can't believe that it's like what people like use.
But the
um,
goal, can you just like remind us of the goal here though? So like why have a Terraform script?
Yeah, so like what Terraform was like designed to solve is like, figuring out like what your infrastructure is and then like applying it so that you could like read it, and so things were like more transparent. But like to me that doesn't really make any sense. Like because they already track first of all what infrastructure you're using through like billing. How do you think they're like charging you? And also like you can easily do something like this in a database, and then it can solve like the issue of like version compatibility. So like let's say you wanted to get this Windows server, right? And you wanted like version 1.5, but let's say Azure is like, we're going to make a change to this so that version like 1.2 like needs a whole different set of like whatever, it needs different like configurations. So if you have something like an API that is like managing that, you can say, oh, you want the 1.2 version. We've already figured out how to reconfigure that based off of this. We've already solved this problem for you. You can just say 1.2, and then we'll either deduce what we need from that call to make it work, or like it should really then be a breaking change with like a 2.0 instead of like a 1.2. And you don't have to track or write any of this ever. so,
Are you
so yeah.
objecting to like to the verbosity of this or to the concept of infrastructure as code?
So like it's definitely more of like uh, kind of like a little bit of both. I think that infrastructure as code is definitely not defining what it is. First of all, like Terraform isn't a real language, so it's like it can't do things like for loops, for example. So you can't really abstract away anything. This is literally just the same as if you went to the UI, found this like information, clicked on it, and then like sent it to the server. And it's not really code because it really doesn't do anything except these are really just a way to format an API call. Like the way that these are working behind the scenes is that it takes this information and then it sends it to the cloud provider's API to then like provision that resource. So like it doesn't make any sense to like put it in this format. And then it's like it's very difficult to figure out how things are breaking or like how do you put them together. Like if you
Mm.
make a mistake somewhere in here, if you have like something like a typo or something like that, the error responses you get back are usually like cryptic, and it's like trying to figure out how to like code something in something that's not a real language that has a lot of things that are like very brittle. It's very like it's very confusing and very time consuming. Honestly, like designing something like this and then maintaining it is like a nightmare. It Yeah, it's like definitely the bane of many engineers.